Why, hello there. This is the Radio Geek, and today we're going to talk about or look at this AM radio made by Caprice. And as you can see here on the badge, it clearly states it is solid state. So, no, there are no tubes in this radio. Hard to believe, I know. And what else is hard to believe? No, I am not the Radio Geek. But if you're not subscribed and watching his channel, ask yourself why. Why isn't you? You should be. The Radio Geek. There will be a link listed below. Click on it, subscribe. Tell him Jack said hi. Here's a radio that I paid way too much for. I'm pretty confident of that. I bought it at the time I bought another radio, which I paid extremely way little for, as it is a high dollar value radio. So it was kind of a wash. I'm fat and happy. Let's move on. This radio has some issues. I'm not going to repair it on camera. This is not a repair video. I will document the issue that the radio has, and then later on in the video we will try to do a band scan, do some DX tonight when it rolls in. This radio, as stated, is from 1974. When you look below in the descriptions, you will find another link. It'll take you over to Pinterest, and in Pinterest there is a heading there, something like, I don't know, just click on the link. This radio has been rebadged at least 31 times. They don't have this one, so it's going to be 32. Different colors, different brands, all cheap, generic junk. This radio, as you can see, is in like new condition. And as stated, it is from about 1974 is when the first one hit the market. Now, I have seen that they made this for about 10 years thereafter, and the way you could tell the old from the new is simply by this snazzy font. The newer one has more of a calligraphy kind of font, kind of snazzy. The old ones have this. Now, there is one thing that's void from this radio, besides the back at this moment. Can you point that out? Can you find it? That's right. An earphone jack. I do believe this is by design that they omitted it on this model. Other models on that Pinterest link that you will click on and you will enjoy. You'll also notate that yes, some of the models there do have an earphone jack. So it definitely would not be all that hard to put one in here. Now, there's nothing wrong with the back. I have the back taken off. This radio is made in Hong Kong. There we go. This radio does not stand up on its own. Why? Let's see if I can get it. If you notice, the plastic was not trimmed off properly. A knife would definitely fix that. Here's a quick look at the guts. Very simple, very basic radio. It has two electrolytics. And if I'd have my other camera fired up, you'd probably see this a lot better, but maybe you can see it right here. See the resistor? Can't get it any closer because my wire, it's short. Some of the resistors here do appear to be 1%ers. Now, I don't know if that means that they've killed somebody and they're in the group, in the club. I don't see any teardrops along with that, so who knows? radio is pretty clean otherwise. The radio does work. The volume control needs a little cleaning, so I'll definitely do that. And I do believe the capacitors are dry, or I might have an issue with one or more of the transistors or some other crazy component. It sounds like I have an issue with dry capacitors, and we're going to turn this on now for your listening enjoyment. Okay, so that does that. Let's try that again. All right, I won't be doing that now. That's part of the problem, is I do believe it's dry capacitors. When the radio was working, the volume, the audio sounded crunchy and really distorted. Prior to filming, I had the radio running for about an hour, and that's what the wire's for. It works perfect off a 9-volt battery, but I opted to run it off a benchtop power supply to see if the radio somewhere somehow would reform. It got slightly better, but that's about it. The radio is extremely loud and proud, however the tonality of this will cut through your head like a hot knife through butter. It is crazy. Anyway, because of its acting up like this, I won't be able to demo it to you in a before stance. Plug your ears. All right, let's run with this.
For a limited time, visit local Castrol dealers for a free chance to win a trip to... Celebration of fans coming together to trash talk one another at Buffalo Wild Wings. We believe that a wedding planner needs to own a football calendar, and our bars are full.
As you can see, it's crazy loud.
Drink responsibly. Is 34910 settled my IRS tax bill?
Thanks for tuning in to State Justice Workshop. It is the Advent season. I want to talk about Advent. In fact, I want to talk about...
It's really not sounding too bad at the moment, but it is still somewhat distorted.
You might take up, maybe you might straighten it.
Anyway, I'm going to pull this board out. I'm going to replace the two electrolytics. And if that resolves the issue, then I'm going to go ahead and align the radio. I'm not going to do any of this on camera. I'll just come back. I'm also going to test this speaker, make sure there's no issues with the speaker. And I'm going to put the radio on an external speaker to see how it sounds there. This speaker is rated at 8 ohms, 2 watts, 200 milliwatts. But it is... I don't know. I don't know if it's the radio or the speaker. It just... tonality is horrible. Even though this is not going to be a repair video, I did want to at least take this opportunity to document the foil side of the radio. There's really only 2 other videos that I saw of Caprice brand on YouTube, and I really didn't find any documentation on the internet. So for historical values, if nothing else, this will be it. Now what I've done so far is I've taken this completely out of the chassis. I'm about ready to pull the 2 capacitors out of here, and I thought I would go ahead and document this this portion as stated. I still need to clean the pot, and I did try hooking this up to my external speaker. Unfortunately, my external speaker is too powerful for this to push. It itself is 8 ohm by 20 watt or 10 watt or something like that. I believe 10 watt. And this unfortunately could not push it. I thought it had enough volume to do so. I'll try again after the capacitor replacement. However, because this is the internal speaker, and I went ahead and ohmed it out, and the speaker is reading about 8.2 ohms, so it is good as far as that is concerned. And since I'm documenting this radio as far as historical value is concerned only, this is a piece of plastic that looped over the speaker, and it's the bottom of the battery tray. And here you could see what it do read. And I guess while I'm at documenting, I might as well do the back cover, the inside of the back cover. As you can see, we got a little goo right there, not cleaned up out of the mold properly. One other thing to note, this strap is made out of plastic. Mine was a little stiff. I've worked at it and it's softened up somewhat. I do need to oil it to help that process. Quick question. Let's see how many of you know this answer. What was this originally called? What was this originally called? Put your answer down below. Don't cheat. Cameras are watching. And then I might as well top it off with the loop stick antenna. As you can see, it's a really nice, big, healthy antenna. And I know when I put my hand on it, the gain definitely amplifies a whole bunch. Part of my tune-up process is I will heat this up, the wax, and I'll adjust it back and forth to see if I can get it to receive any better than what it is. I have the 2 capacitors replaced, and I'm coming in here to clean the volume control, and I wanted to show you that the pot on that is completely open on top. The only thing that was covering it was the volume control knob. So completely kind of cheap, but guess it's okay. Wouldn't want to take this on the job site, I reckon. After I do that, then I'm going to tune up the radio. Haven't turned it on yet to see what it sounds like, but I'm suspecting it'll sound somewhat better. Alright, so you remember how I said at the beginning of this video that this was not going to be a repair video? Well, that clearly has turned to be a false statement for sure. Working on this radio, I thought I had it all ready to go, and then it started to develop a high-pitched squeal. Running through it, using, and I'm only bringing this up mainly because here not too long ago, Chris over at AllTheGearNoIdea did a series on signal tracers, and I made a comment to him in regards to mine. And this is something I really haven't shown on screen before, and this here will be the first time. I don't use it often, but I do have one. And that's my signal tracer. It covers RF in this port, AF in this port, and then common ground. It's a really simple basic circuit. You could find the schematic for this on the internet and build it very easy yourself if you so desire. If you wanted to buy this, these goofy things go for crazy money anymore on on the eBays. So going through the radio, like I said, I started getting that squeal. Thought I had narrowed it down to that transistor right there, and I wouldn't have any issues pulling it out to carry on testing it and then replacing it as desired, or as needed rather. Not desired. I don't desire to pull that and replace it. Then again, do I? Unfortunately, none of the transistors have numbers on them. So even if I wanted to replace it, needed to replace it, I couldn't even begin to tell you what it required. And there's my squeal. Ah. Let me back out. So just a moment ago, I wiggled this. I'm not sure if you could hear it. I will say this though, when it does work, it is working a lot better. It sounds a lot better. And I'm using the internal, I'm using the radio's own speaker. I've got it hooked up to jumpers. And I have it face down on the workbench. Sounds good. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the heat gun, fire it up, and I'm going to hit some pieces and parts and see if I can get anything excited and see what happens. Because at this moment, alright, I think you could hear the squeal. And all I done was touch in this area. Cuts out when I wiggle this coil. So is it that transformer? Or is it something else? The board? Could I have a loose solder joint? And see, now it's gone. Let me work on this a little more. Well, I went through with the heat gun and I hit everything, top side, bottom side, And the only thing that happened besides the wax melting a little bit was when I got to this diode right here. Could have even been the resistor behind it, but I think it's the diode. Either way, it doesn't matter. When I got in that area, the sharpness, the brightness of the audio quality kind of diminished, kind of faded away. Wasn't quite as strong and pronounced, and that was it. But I mean, gosh, that could just be the characteristics of how, you know, electronic components happen once it hits heat. Now, I only hit had my heat gun set at 100 degrees. You know, I was on it until I started seeing the wax up here start to melt. So, I mean, it got warm, and I didn't hammer it. You know, once I saw that and I heard it start to break down, then I backed off, and I wasn't, I was probably, you know, about this far away from it, a couple inches. And that was it. Couldn't get it to do anything else. I got no squeal. I also went and reflowed the back. Hit all the solder points that I could. And I say all that I could because as you see up underneath this dial, there are a few, but I did try to reach as far as I could. The only way to take this dial off is you got to pull this medallion off, this faceplate off. And honestly, I don't see a reason to deface it that bad. If I really need to get up underneath there, I will. Because I would imagine right in the center is going to be a screw. So I figured, you know, it doesn't warrant enough to deface this fantastic radio any more than I have to. As you see, I got wax up on here, so I got to come back and clean that all up when I'm done. Otherwise, at this point, the radio's working fine. And like I said, that's working off of its own internal speaker. So at this point in time, it sounds really good. I'm impressed. So I think what I'm going to do is call it done at this stage, put it back into the radio, and I'm going to tune it up and see what happens. Did want to show you how well it receives just by touching the coil. Pretty impressive, huh?